Look, I think a lot of the projection stuff that we've seen and we've talked about a lot, the IMHE and all these other places, I think what's important to realize when we talk about these things is that the data coming in skewed the original numbers. And we didn't actually get good numbers from where it all started, China, et cetera. And we didn't get the right numbers. So it skewed everything. And then when we started getting more numbers, they started feeding that in. So where are they feeding numbers in from? New York City, where they were having a huge thing. So you had this giant 2.2 million. You had news sources in Alabama saying 25,000 people in Alabama were going to die. And it was never going to happen. Everyone knew this was never going to happen. And
no, but did they? I'm not to interrupt, but did they know that?
They had to know. They were going out and saying...
You give humanity far too much credit.
They were saying 60% of Alabamians... AL.com had an article that said 60% of Alabamians would get COVID-19. And then they went through and talked about how many would be hospitalized and how many would die. And the number they came up with at the end was 25,000 would die. And I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And because they did that, they scared everybody. And I'm not anti-shutdown. I was, I took a lot of heat from my listeners on this because I did this. I believe that we should have probably shut down for a little bit just to see what was going on and get a grip on this. I thought that was the case, and people jump me all the time. I was very critical of the governor for this, and for not doing not shutting it down soon enough. I mean, that was just me. That's how I felt. I feel like I've been vindicated by that because we did slow the curve as we wanted to do. And I also thought that because the rest of the country and the world had done this, it didn't matter what Alabama did. We weren't going to save our economy because of this. We were going to be swept up in the tidal wave like everyone else, and that's just the way it was going to be. So
interstate commerce is a heck of a thing. You know,
right. And at this point, we just had to lean into it and say, let's get in there and get it over as soon as possible and get back where we need to go. So what happens? We get in there, we do it, we get it over with as soon as possible. And the other day, and this is maybe a little in the weeds here, Alabama passed 2 budgets yesterday. And the budgets, basically, one was the biggest education budget the state has ever passed. And this is talking about what could happen in the future. So this is with all this other stuff happening, tax revenue and all these other things. And the other was a general fund budget that was basically level funded. And what those things mean is that Alabama is not in a situation where the sky is falling and we need a federal government bailout and you need all these things to make this stuff happen. Now, there's a $1.8 billion in CARES funding that's going to go towards paying for a bunch of stuff that happened with COVID-19 in the state, and that's exactly what should happen. But my point is this. There are states begging for bailouts right now because they're spending so out of control. They've shut it down so much that they haven't been able to collect any of that tax revenue. Look at Florida. Tourism, dead. California, tourism, dead. And you have all these things. Alabama's weathered this pretty well. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. There are still hot spots all over the state. But there are good signs. There'll be free tests in Thursday in Athens. In Huntsville Hospital, they're like, we'll test anybody who wants one. You don't even have symptoms. Just come on out because they don't have enough tests. 10,000 more tests than needed in New York. The point is, we're moving definitely in the right direction. We still got to wash our hands and socially distance. We didn't shake hands today. I mean, that's just the reality. But then we talked at each other for 20 minutes now. The point is this. We fared pretty well here. If this is the end of this, we've done very well. Now, could there be a relapse? Absolutely. Hope it doesn't happen. But in the first round of this, we fared pretty good.